2024 end of year national examination results in respect of the following four Umalusi quality assured qualifications. The first is the General Education and Training Certificate, Adult Basic Education and Training GTC ABET, which is at level 1 of the National Qualifications Framework, NQF, and is equivalent to grade 9 in schools. The GTC ABET is assessed by the Department of Higher Education and Training, DHET, Independent Examinations Board, IEB, and the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute, Sakai. The second set of results are those of the NATED report 190191 N2 to N3 programs, which are assessed by the DHET. As a reminder, the N1 to N3 programs are being phased out, with the last enrollment date for the new students being the 31st of December 2023. The phase out has been occasioned by the Government Gazette, signed by the Minister of Higher Education and Training on 25 August 2023. Detailed information on this phase out process is available from the Department of Higher Education and Training. The third qualification is the National Certificate Vocational NCV, levels 2 to 4, and is assessed by the Department of Higher Education and Training. The fourth set of results are for the National Senior Certificate, NSC, which is assessed by the Department of Basic Education, DBE, the Independent Examinations Board, IEB, and the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute, Sakai. Program Director, it is at this point where I find it necessary to clear the misconceptions about the NSC versus the IEB debate. As you may be aware, there are some members of the public who, in discussing grade 12 or matric results, refer to the IEB as if it is a qualification that is in competition with the NSC. The fact is that the IEB is not a certificate, but an assessment body accredited by Umalusi to administer the NSC and GETC ABET examinations. South Africa has got only one grade 12 or matric qualification, namely the National Senior Certificate. Therefore, the grade 12 learners who write and succeed in the NSC examinations under the IEB receive the same NSC certificate that is quality assured and issued by Umalusi, as is the case with the DBE and the Sakai learners. I think that point is clear, colleagues. Following the conduct, administration, and management of the above mentioned examinations by the four assessment bodies, the monitoring thereof by Umalusi and the standardization of examination results by the Assessment Standards Committee of Umalusi Council, both the assessment bodies and Umalusi presented their reports for the consideration of the Executive Committee of Council, EXCO. The outcomes of the deliberations of the ASC and the decisions of the EXCO of Umalusi Council will be presented shortly by Professor Eunice Balim, Chairperson of Umalusi Council. I will now briefly present the scope and size of the 2024 examinations. A total of 1,060,852 learners candidates participated in the 2024 end of year examinations. Out of that number, the National Senior Certificate NSC accounts for 832,993 candidates, or 78.5%, distributed across the Department of Basic Education, the Independent Examinations Board, and the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute. The remaining 227,859, or 21.5%, candidates are distributed across 3 qualifications. 130,000 wrote the NCV levels 1 to 4 examinations. 49,421 wrote the N2 to N3 examinations, and 40,438 wrote the GETC ABET examinations. The examinations were administered at a combined total of 9,566 examination centers distributed across the 9 provinces of the country. My apologies. As the law requires, all the examinations were subjected to the quality assurance processes of Umalusi. The General and Further Education and Training Quality Assurance Act 58 of 2001, as amended, acronymed GENFEDQA Act, confers a range of powers and functions on Umalusi in respect of the exit level national examinations associated with the qualifications on the sub-framework of qualifications, NQF levels 1 to 4. The powers and functions include the following: the external moderation of question papers and site-based assessments or school-based assessment, SBA, to ensure the maintenance of standards of assessment. The audit of the system to conduct, administer, and manage the examinations to determine the readiness of the whole system. The monitoring of the writing of the examinations across sampled examination centers to determine the credibility of the examinations. Participation in marking guideline standardization meetings in selected subjects to ensure that the marking process is accurate and reliable. Verification of quality of marking in sampled subjects to ensure accuracy and reliability. Standardization of examination marks to ensure comparability and consistency in learner performance across the years. And approval of the publication of the learner results. The above-mentioned quality assurance processes show that the quality assurance framework that Umalusi uses requires different role players to approach examination quality and standards from various but complementary dimensions to safeguard the integrity and credibility of every set of examination results. I would like to express our thanks to every one of the moderators, examinations monitors, marking verifiers, Umalusi staff, etc., for ensuring the full implementation of the quality assurance framework. Umalusi could not have reached this stage without your professional and administrative assistance. Regarding the standardization of the 2024 examinations, the Assessment Standards Committee of Umalusi Council standardized the results of the examinations between 19 December 2024 and 5 January 2025. As mentioned already, standardization of result is meant to ensure comparability and consistency in learner performance across years. This year's standardization processes were undertaken in the presence of officials representing 7 national and 3 continental organizations. The continental bodies were the Examinations Council of Lesotho, ECOL, Examinations Council of Zambia, ECZ, and Malawi National Examinations Board, MANEP. Nationally in attendance were senior officials representing Universities South Africa, USF, South African Qualifications Authority, SAQA, the South African Council for Educators, SACE, South African Democratic Teachers Union, SATU, National Professional Teachers Organization of South Africa, NAPTOSA, National Teachers Union, NATU, and the South African Onderwys Unie, SAOU. The observation of standardization processes by especially stakeholders and their organization lends credibility to the process and affirms our publicly stated position that Umalusi is a transparent public entity and that its quality assurance processes, standardization included, are open to the scrutiny of peers on the continent and elsewhere in the world. Based on the experiences gathered over 5 consecutive days, the observers from Lesotho, Malawi, and Zambia shared several key takeaways, of which the following 2 are worth singling out for the purposes of today. The first is that they said they were extremely impressed by the wealth of knowledge and experience that the members of the Assessment Standards Committee possess. Secondly, the observers said they were amazingly surprised at the ASC's use of multiple sources of available data or evidence, namely numerical evidence and narrative reports. They went further to affirm that the multiple reports elicited rich discussions that resulted in the ASC arriving at standardization decisions by way of consensus. Concerning the second takeaway, I can confirm as the CEO of Umalusi that during its standardization processes, the Assessment Standards Committee conducted meticulous analysis of the evidence presented in relation to each of the 514 subjects spread across 4 qualifications, 150 NSC subjects, 269 NCV levels 2 to 4 subjects, 55 and 2 and 3 subjects, and 40 GTC ABET subjects to arrive at standardization decisions. Crucially important, I want to assure you that there were no deviations from the standardization principles in the manner in which the ASC standardized the 514 subject results. This makes it abundantly clear that the ASC carries a great responsibility on its shoulders. That is, to ensure that Umalusi truly honors its vision of being a trusted authority in fostering higher education standards in general and further education and training in South Africa. Umalusi is indebted to the Assessment Standards Committee of Council for always executing its mandate in accordance with the Act. the relevant Umalusi policy and the approved principles of standardization, which were applied consistently across all qualifications and subjects. During the State of Readiness media briefing in October 2024, Umalusi raised a concern at the shortage of markers in relation to the DBE's history, Afrikaans first additional language, and English home language, particularly paper 3. I can confirm that the Department of Basic Education did manage to put in place plans to ameliorate the situation. Umalusi is also pleased that the other risk factors, such as load shedding, weather conditions, community protests, and so on, did not materially affect the smooth running of the examinations. As I conclude, I would like to express our concern at how some aspects of the conduct, administration, and management of the examinations were handled by some of the assessment bodies, disallowing candidates from writing. Umalusi is concerned at the persistent phenomenon of teachers and principals refusing to allow registered learners to write examinations in particular subjects. Anecdotally, this phenomenon is motivated by the desire to improve the results. This is unlawful, and Umalusi advises the affected learners and parents or guardians to report such incidents to the relevant authorities. Coming to unregistered candidates, Umalusi received a report from the Department of Basic Education to the effect that an independent school allowed 30 candidates who did not pass grade 11 to register for grade 12 examinations. This is highly irregular. Whereas this is only one case, it is one too many. Umalusi is satisfied with the action taken to withdraw both the registration of these 30 candidates and the withdrawal also of the registration status of the school concerned. So they will no more be allowed to run examinations. With regard to unaccredited institutions, Umalusi has learned from the reports presented by the DHET that 128 private colleges administered the N2 to N3 examinations, despite that the colleges are not accredited by Umalusi. For that reason, Umalusi has directed the DHET to investigate the matter and furnish Umalusi with a full report. Regarding examination malpractices, while all 4 assessment bodies reported some detected cases of malpractice or cheating during the writing of the examinations, I find it necessary to flag the following cases. Almost 365 N2 to N3 candidates in the private college sector are reported to have been involved in acts of copying. In the case of the NSC, while there's been a reduction in the number of reported cases of group copying in the Department of Basic Education, that is, the number decreased from 945 in 2023 to 407 in 2024. Umalusi remains seriously concerned that KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga are once again at the top of the list, with 195 and 74 implicated candidates respectively. I want to state emphatically that cheating does not pay. This finds support in the judgment of the Mpumalanga Division of the High Court, which was delivered on 12 August 2024 in respect of 448 learners from a number of schools in the Mpumalanga province who cheated during their NSC examinations during October-December 2022. In the judgment, the acting judge said in paragraph 37, "I have no doubt that the learners have cheated and had deserved to be punished as they were. What the learners must appreciate is that cheating does not pay." Regarding previous cases of irregularities involving teachers and invigilators, Umalusi is pleased with the progress made by the Department of Basic Education. The conclusion of the cases resulted in some of the invigilators and teachers being dismissed, while others had their salaries docked for up to 3 months. Similarly, we are pleased that the DB is considering reporting such cases to the South African Council for Educators, SABC. Umalusi remains concerned at the lack of a resolution in respect of the previous cases of irregularities involving the DHET's GTC ABET qualification. We urge the DHET to give this matter the agency that it deserves. One area of concern is the area of marking concessions. We are also concerned at the year-on-year increase in the number of marking concessions that the DHET applied for. For the 2024 examination, Umalusi received marking concessions in 19 subjects compared to 17 subjects in 2023. A marking concession, colleagues, is an instance where an assessment body makes a request to Umalusi to have certain questions found to be problematic during the marking process to be excluded, either entirely or partly, and upscaling the total marks achieved using conversion tables. What is problematic about this practice is that it has the likelihood of negatively affecting the overall standard of the question paper concerned. Umalusi urges all role players to put in place stringent measures to prevent the recurrence of all the above issues. If left unattended, the lapses in question could undermine the validity of the exam and the integrity of certificates issued by Umalusi. Professor Balim will explain in the approval statement how such cases must be dealt with by the relevant assessment bodies. My apologies. Umalusi strongly condemns the reported cases of the girl students who became victims of rape while preparing themselves for the examinations in the Eastern Cape. We urge stakeholders, including the law enforcement agencies, to work together to avoid the recurrence of this shocking reality. We are very grateful to the Executive Committee of Council for investing 2 full days of their time extracting meaning out of the large volumes of information presented by the assessment bodies and Umalusi in respect of the 11 sets of the examination results. We are grateful for EXCO's members' time, insight, expertise, and their commitment, without which would not have been here. Special thanks go to the assessment bodies for cooperating in various ways with both the Assessment Status Committee of Council and the Executive Committee of Council at the various stages of the quality assurance value chain. Finally, I would like to express my warmest, sincerest, and heartfelt congratulations to the class of 2024, their family and friends. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for listening to me. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, CEO. We will now hand over to Professor Balim to read the approval statement. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much. And thank you all. There's a microphone in front of me that seems to be connected to nothing. I hope somebody is hearing it. But good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here. And I want to greet the CEO of Umalusi, Dr. Mafura Kometsi, who has just addressed you, Umalusi management and staff, the assessment bodies that are who are here and well represented, the DBE, the DHET, IEB, and Sakai, members of the media, warm greetings, and of course the class of 2024, who are really the subject of our discussion today. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to start by reiterating that Umalusi draws its mandate in relation to quality assurance at the exit level of national examinations from the General and Further Education and Training Quality Assurance Act, Act 58 of 2001, as it's been amended. The Act assigns to Umalusi a range of powers and functions, including approval of the publication of learner results if the Council is satisfied that the assessment body or the education institution has conducted the assessment free from any irregularity that may jeopardize the integrity of the assessment of its outcomes, complied with the requirements prescribed by the Council for conducting assessments, applied the standards prescribed by the Council with which a learner is required to comply in order to obtain a certificate, and complied with every other condition determined by the Council. Following the conduct, administration and management of the National Senior Certificate, National Senior Certificate Vocational, that's the NCV levels 2 to 4, the NATED Report 190/191, N2 and N3, General Education and Training Certificate for Adult Basic Education and Training, what we refer to as the GETC ABET qualification. Following those examinations by the 4 assessment bodies, namely the Department of Basic Education, who I will refer to as DBE, the Department of Higher Education and Training, the DHET, the Independent Examinations Board, IEB, and the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute, Sakai, and the monitoring thereof by Umalusi, both the assessment bodies and Umalusi presented their reports for the consideration of the Executive Committee of Umalusi Council during EXCO's approval meetings on the 7th and 9th of January 2025. The approval statements bring together decisions taken after careful consideration of available evidence by various role players at different stages of Umalusi's quality assurance cycle. EXCO's approval for the release of the candidates' results is confirmation that the assessments leading to certification in schools, adult education centers, and technical and vocational education and training colleges was of the required standard across all qualifications for all examinations conducted in this period under review. I should mention that in my reading of the statements, you'll find some of it repetitive. However, the repetition is necessary, mainly to ensure thoroughness for each of the individual examination bodies. One critical quality assurance process that precedes the approval meetings is the standardization of examination results by the Assessment Standards Committee of Umalusi Council. During its standardization meetings, the ASC conducted careful analysis of the results for each of over 500 subjects, spread across 4 assessment bodies and qualifications to arrive at its standardization decisions. The process is detailed and rigorous and is guided by standardization principles, which are supported by numerical evidence and narrative reports. The standardization principles are a matter of public knowledge, and I will not speak to the detail of these. The principles are available on the Umalusi website if you need access. Let me also say that media, you will get a copy of this report, so I won't go through the detail of all the analysis that is here. I'll merely mention or refer to them. I will now present the approval decisions of EXCO, of Council for each assessment body, starting with the results of Sakai. Thereafter, I will move on to the results of the IEB, followed by those of the DHET, and then conclude with the results of the Department of Basic Education, the DBE. So to start then with standardization approval decisions for Sakai, the Sakai has for the 3rd year in succession conducted and managed the examinations as a fully accredited assessment body after Umalusi granted it full accreditation status to assess the General Education and Training Certificate for Adult Basic Education and the National Senior Certificate with effect from 1 October 2022. Starting then with the GETC ABET standardization, the Sakai administered examinations to 257 candidates at 38 examination centers. Concerning the standardization of the 7 learning areas, 4 learning areas had their results accepted in the submitted or raw form, while 3 were adjusted mainly upwards. There is an analysis of the trends of performance for Sakai over the years from 2020, and you'll get access to that. The approval statement for the release of the GETC ABET results for Sakai then reads as follows. Having studied all the evidence presented, the Executive Committee of Umalusi Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the Sakai policy for the General Education and Training Certificate, Adult Basic Education and Training, external examinations. There were no systemic irregularities reported that might have compromised the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2024 GETC ABET examinations administered by the Sakai. EXCO of Council approves the release of the Sakai November 2024 GETC ABET examination results. In respect of identified irregularities, the Sakai is required to block the results of all the implicated candidates, including candidates who were implicated in the alleged acts of dishonesty, pending the outcome of further Sakai investigations and verification by Umalusi. The Sakai is required to address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and to submit the improvement plan by 14th March 2025. EXCO of Council commends the Sakai for conducting a successful examination. Turning then to the NSC standardization decisions for Sakai, Sakai administered NSC examinations in 24 subjects to 5,789 candidates at 84 examination centers. After considering all the evidence available, the ASC arrived at the following standardization decisions. Raw marks were accepted for 14 subjects. The results in 8 subjects were adjusted mainly upwards, and the results in the remaining 2 subjects were adjusted mainly downwards. Allow me just to comment on this point about accepting raw and adjustments upwards and downwards. Raw marks accepted means that the ASC was satisfied that the examinations and the results produced as they were presented, were of a suitable standard, quality and appropriateness for the results to be accepted as they were. That usually, and I will make this point again later, is an indication of an examination system or an examination that is stabilizing, maturing, and finding a performance that is repeatable and reproducible. And that, of course, with the possibility of an improvement over the years, but certainly repeatability and reproducibility is an important consideration in this regard. Since there are few people in our society who may be interested in the actual standardization decisions per subject, those are presented in the document that you will be receiving. And we've in fact detailed which marks were accepted as raw, or subjects which raw marks were accepted, the subjects in which mainly upward adjustments were made, and the subjects in which mainly downward adjustments were made. The approval statements for the release of the NSC results for Sakai then read as follows. Having studied all the evidence presented, the Executive Committee of Umalusi Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the regulations pertaining to the conduct, administration and management of the National Senior Certificate Examinations. There were no systemic irregularities reported that might have compromised the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2024 National Senior Certificate Examinations administered by Sakai. EXCO of Council approves the release of the Sakai November 2024 National Senior Certificate Examination results. Regarding the identified irregularities, Sakai is required to nullify the results of the candidates implicated in the irregularities and implement sustainable strategies to mitigate the recurrence of reported administrative errors and omissions. The Sakai is required to address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and to submit the improvement plan by the 14th of March 2025. The EXCO of Council commends Sakai for conducting a successful examination. Please excuse me. I now turn to standardization and approval decisions for the IEB. Looking at the GETC ABET standardization decisions for the IEB, the GETC ABET examinations of the IEB were administered in 378 candidates at 53 examination centers. The results in the 7 learning areas were standardized as follows. Raw marks were accepted in 2 of the learning areas. Mainly upward adjustments were made in 2 of the learning areas, and mainly downward adjustments were made in 3 of the learning areas. The approval statement for the release of the GETC ABET results for IEB reads as follows. Having studied all the evidence presented, the Executive Committee of Umalusi Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the IEB policy on conduct, administration and management of examinations. There were no systemic irregularities reported that might have compromised the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2024 GETC ABET examinations administered by the IEB. EXCO of Council approves the release of the IEB November 2024 GETC ABET examination results. In respect of identified irregularities, the IEB is required to block the results of all implicated candidates, including candidates who are implicated in the alleged acts of dishonesty, pending the outcome of further IEB investigation and verification by Umalusi. The IEB is required to address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and to submit the improvement plan by 14 March 2025. EXCO of Council expressed its concerns to the IEB on the management of irregularities and requests the IEB to submit the improvement plan by 31 March 2025 on strategies for attending to these irregularities. That's the improvement plan that I'm referring to. Turning to the National Senior Certificate Standardization decisions for the IEB, a total of 16,304 candidates wrote the National Senior Certificate examinations at 256 examination centers under the IEB. The IEB presented 58 subject results for standardizations, and after considering the available evidence, raw marks were accepted for 42 of these subjects. Mainly upward adjustments were made in 8 subjects, and mainly downward adjustments were made in 8 subjects. From the table that you will see, I just wanted to note that the number of subjects presented for standardization by the IEB has been on a downward trajectory since 2020. There is again a table in the report that you will receive that will detail the subjects that were standardized and the form of that standardization, whether raw marks were accepted or upward adjustments were made or mainly downward adjustments were made. The approval statement for the release of the National Senior Certificate results for the IEB then reads as follows. Having studied all the evidence presented, the Executive Committee of Umalusi Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the regulations pertaining to the conduct, administration and management of the National Senior Certificate and management of the National Senior Certificate examinations. There were no systemic irregularities reported that might have compromised the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2024 National Senior Certificate examinations administered by the IEB. Exco of Council approves the release of the IEB November 2024 NSC examination results. In respect of identified irregularities, the IEB is required to nullify the results of candidates implicated in the irregularities. The IEB is also required to address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and to submit an improvement plan by the 14th of March 2025. Exco of Council commends the IEB for conducting a successful examination. Colleagues, I now turn to standardization and approval decisions for the DHET. This section of the approval statement focuses on the 3 sets of results for examinations administered by the Department of Higher Education and Training. These are the GETC ABET examinations, the National Senior Certificate Vocational, that's the NCV Level 2 and Level 4, and the NATED Report 190, 191, N2 and N3 qualifications. Turning to the GETC ABET standardization decisions, the DHET administered GETC ABET examinations to 39,804 candidates at 1,562 examination centers. The following standardizations were made for the 26 learning areas that were administered. Raw marks were accepted in 12 of the learning areas. 10 learning areas were adjusted mainly upwards. Excuse me. And 4 learning areas were adjusted mainly downwards. The approval statement for the release of the GETC ABET results administered by the DHET then reads as follows. Having studied all the evidence presented, the Executive Committee of Umalusi Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the national policy pertaining to the conduct, administration and management of examinations of colleges, established, declared or registered in terms of the Continuing Education and Training Act. There were no systemic irregularities reported that might have compromised the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2024 GETC ABET examinations administered by the DHET. EXCO of Council approves the release of the DHET November 2024 GTC ABET examination results. In respect of identified irregularities, the DHET is required to block the results of all candidates implicated in irregularities, including the candidates who are implicated in the alleged acts of dishonesty, pending the outcome of further DHET investigations and verification by Umalusi. As mentioned in the November 22 and November 2023 statements, the high number of irregularities in these examinations remain a concern. The DHET is required to address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and to submit the improvement plan by the 14th of March 2025. EXCO of Council expresses its concern at the persistent lapses in the management of these examinations and requires the DHET to actively engage with Umalusi on implementation of an agreed improvement plan. Turning now to the NCV levels 2 to 4 standardization decisions for the DHET, the NCV L2 to L4 examinations were written by 138,000 candidates, and this is made up of 53,867 at level 2 and around 49,000 at level 3, and a further 35,000 at level 4. And these were administered at 261 examination centers. The standardization decisions arrived at are as follows. Raw marks were accepted for 182 subjects. That's about 68%. Mainly upward adjustments were made in 37 subjects, and mainly downward adjustments were made in 49 subjects. One subject was not standardized. I'll talk to that a little later. The SC could not standardize materials level 2, that's the subject, because the DHET administered a wrong question paper. Consequently, the examination will be re-administered on the 21st of February 2025 during the supplementary examination period. The tabulated information which you will receive shows an upward trend in the number of subjects for which raw marks are being accepted over the period from 2020 to 2024. Once again, this is a sign of a maturing system, and it is a highly commendable development. The approval statement for the release of the NCV level 2 to 4 results in the DHET then reads as follows. Having studied all the evidence presented, the Executive Committee of EXCO of Umalusi Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the national policy pertaining to the conduct, administration and management of the examinations of colleges, established, declared or registered in terms of the Continuing Education and Training Act 2006. There were no systemic irregularities reported that might have compromised the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2024 NCV levels 2 to 4 examinations administered by the DHET. EXCO of Council approves the release of the DHET November 2024 NCV levels 2 to 4 examination results. The DHET is required to firstly, in respect of identified irregularities, block the results of all candidates implicated in the irregularities, including the candidates who are implicated in the alleged acts of dishonesty, pending the outcome of further DHET investigations and verification by Umalusi. Secondly, to nullify the November 2024 materials NCV level 2 examination results. Thirdly, to block the results of candidates and centers that fail to comply with the ICAS and ISAT/PAT requirements. This is the assessments that are done at the school, and the acronyms mean something. I just can't get them in my head right now. but they relate to the assessments that are done at school, which form part of the final overall result. And this is these results are to be blocked at the centres that fail to comply with the requirements, pending the outcomes of further investigation by DHET and verification by Umalusi. And then lastly, the DHET is expected to address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the quality assurance of assessment report and submit the improvement plan by the 14th of March 2025. EXCO of Council expresses its concern at the persistent lapses in the management of these examinations and requires the DHE to actively engage with Umalusi on the implementation of an agreed improvement plan. If we now turn to the N2 to N3 standardization decisions for the DHET, this year's N2 and N3 examinations were written by 49,421 candidates at 379 examination centres. For the 55 instructional offerings that were standardized, the following decisions were taken. Raw marks were accepted for 28 of the subjects. Mainly upward adjustments were made in 15 subjects, and mainly downward adjustments were made in 12 subjects. The results and our analysis show that the number of subjects for which raw marks were accepted is declining, while upward adjustments are increasing, and this is a cause for concern. The approval statements for the release of the N2 to N3 results in the DHET examinations then reads as follows. Having studied all the evidence presented, the Executive Committee of Umalusi Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the national policy pertaining to the conduct, administration and management of the examination of colleges, established, declared or registered in terms of the Continuing Education and Training Act 2006. There were no systemic irregularities reported that might have compromised the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2024 NATED Report 190-191 Engineering Studies N2 and N3 examinations administered by the DHET. EXCO of Council approves the release of the DHET November 2024 NATED N2 N3 examination results. The DHET is required to, firstly, in respect of identified irregularities, block the results of all candidates implicated in irregularities, including the candidates who were implicated in the alleged acts of dishonesty, pending the outcome of further DHET investigation and verification by Umalusi. Block the results of candidates and centres that failed to comply with ICAS requirements, pending the outcome of further investigation by the DHET and verification by Umalusi. Thirdly, to block the results of the learners that wrote at unaccredited centres without concessions from Umalusi, pending the outcome of further DHET investigations and verification by Umalusi. And lastly, address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment Report and to submit the improvement plan by the 14th of March 2025. EXCO of Council expresses its concern at the persistent lapses in the management of these examinations and requires the DHET to actively engage with Umalusi on the implementation of an agreed improvement plan. The three approval statements for the examinations administered by the DHET raise several concerns about various aspects of the conduct, administration and management of the JATC ABET, the NCV level 2 to 4 examinations. It is for this reason that EXCO of Council requires the DHET to actively engage with Umalusi on the implementation of an agreed improvement plan. The specific lapses which the DHET's improvement plan must consider will be detailed in the letter that Umalusi will write to the Director General of the DHET. In this final of the section of the statement, we present the National Senior Certificate Examination results for the Department of Basic Education, the DBE. Out of the 880,209 candidates who were registered to write the NSC examination under the DBE, 810,900 who managed to write, or rather there were only 810,000 who actually managed to write. This implies that 69,309 candidates, or about 8% of the registered students, were absent from the examinations. And of course some assessment needs to be done. The 810,900 candidates who sat for the examinations include 704,401 full-time candidates and 106,499 part-time candidates. The examinations were written at 6,933 examination centers across the 9 provinces. The DBE presented results for 68 subjects for standardizations, and after careful analysis of the numerical evidence and the narrative reports presented, the ASC arrived at the following decisions. Raw marks were accepted in 53 of the subjects, that's about 78% of the subjects. Mainly upward adjustments were made in 2 subjects, and mainly downward adjustments were made in 13 subjects. A year-on-year comparison of the DBE results show a clear pattern of an upward trend in the number of subjects for which raw marks are being accepted over the last 4 years. This is a very clear signal that the system continues to produce consistent and reliable results over time. The standardizations taken for each of the 68 subjects administered by the DBE are in the table that you will receive, and they're broken down individually by those for which raw marks were accepted, those for which mainly upward adjustments were made, and those for which mainly downward adjustments were made. The approval statement for the release of the NSC results administered by the DBE then reads as follows. Having studied all the evidence presented, the Executive Committee of Umalusi Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the regulations pertaining to the conduct, administration and management of the National Senior Certificate Examinations. There were no systemic irregularities reported that might have compromised the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2024 National Senior Certificate Examinations administered by the DBE. EXCO of Council approves the release of the DBE November 2024 National Senior Certificate Examination results. In respect of identified irregularities, the DBE is required to block the results of all candidates implicated in irregularities, including the candidates who are implicated in alleged acts of dishonesty, pending the outcome of the DBE investigations and verification by Umalusi. The DBE is required to address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and to submit the improvement plan by 14th March 2025. EXCO of Council commends the DBE for conducting a successful examination on such a large scale. To bring all of this together, then, on the basis of the information that I've just reported, the overall picture for 2024 end of the year national examinations can be summarized as follows. The examinations were written by 1,060,852 candidates, distributed across 4 assessment bodies and 4 qualifications. The NSC candidates contributed about almost 79% of the total. The finer details are of course provided in a table that you will receive in the report. Of the 514 subject results that were presented for standardization, raw marks were accepted in 337 subjects, that's about 66%. Generally, upward adjustments were made in 85 subjects, and generally downward adjustments were made in 91 subjects. The breakdown by qualification is as follows. National Senior Certificate, that's the DBE, IEB and Sakai. Out of the 150 subjects, raw marks were accepted in 109 subjects. 18 subjects were mainly adjusted upwards, and 23 subjects were mainly adjusted downwards. For the NCV levels 2 to 4, administered by DHET, 182 of the 268 subjects had their raw marks accepted. Mainly upward adjustments were made in 37 subjects. 49 subjects were mainly adjusted downwards. And to remind you, materials level 2 was not standardized because of the reasons I've explained. For the N2 to N3 DHET results, raw marks were accepted in 28 subjects. 15 subjects were adjusted mainly upwards, and 12 subjects were adjusted mainly downwards. For the GTC ABET examinations administered by DHET, IEB and Sakai, raw marks were accepted in 18 of the 40 subjects, mainly upward adjustments on 15 subjects, and mainly downward adjustments on 7 of these subjects. During the process for standardization and approval of results, Umalusi noted specific issues that require the attention of the relevant assessment bodies. Whereas those issues will be covered in the assessment body-specific composite reports detailing areas of best practice, areas of non-compliance, and directives for compliance and improvement, it is worth mentioning that a high absenteeism rate has once again been noted in some of the examinations. Equally important, there are subjects that continue to produce unusually high failure rates. These observations raise questions about the levels of support that candidates find in their teaching, learning, and examination preparation experiences. A few comments as I conclude then. Umalusi is extremely pleased that there were no detected cases of paper leakages. And I think I'm correct to say this is the 4th year in a row. No other irregularities that could have compromised the overall credibility and integrity of the examinations. We are very grateful to all examining bodies and related role players for tightening up the entire value chain, including the work done by the State Security Agency in relation to the places where question papers are printed, packaged, and stored. Umalusi congratulates the class of 2024 who have succeeded in the examinations. Words of appreciation are also due to their teachers, to their parents and guardians, and all those who have supported the learners throughout their journey, including the maintenance and cleaning staff at our schools and colleges, the taxi and other public-private transport drivers who take care in bringing our learners to school, and to the community members who show concern for the learning of our children. We thank everybody, all role players, for ushering the class of 2024 to this important day. To those learners who have not succeeded, please don't give up. Effort is important, and your effort is recognized. Work harder, and you will do better in this year's examinations. For guidance in terms of what to look for in choosing an institution, a school or private college to register with to improve your results, you are advised to visit the website of Umalusi. That will ensure that you do not fall prey to bogus institutions. Please be careful of this. Umalusi congratulates all the assessment bodies for successfully conducting and managing 2024 end-of-year examinations. As evidenced by the numbers that we present, the examination system is large and complex. It is not an easy task to ensure that each one of over 1 million candidates across the length and breadth of South Africa receives the correct question paper at the right time and in the correct venue. That individual scripts are collected and marked, that marks are verified and then transferred onto the computer system and submitted to Umalusi for standardization purposes. That standardization decisions are implemented on the system And lastly, that learners are resulted in a timely manner. All this done with proper attention to integrity in the process. This is certainly most deserving of our collective social commendation. I wish to thank all the members of the Assessment Standards Committee under the chairpersonship of Professor Lois Ojita and his deputy, Professor Mabokang Monnapule Mapesela, who worked tirelessly to ensure delivery of credible outcomes. This committee of 15 members, constituted by some of the finest minds drawn from various university and research institutes in South Africa, is always willing to sacrifice their valuable time during the festive season to ensure the best outcome for South African learners. I extend words of appreciation to my colleagues in the Executive Committee of the Umalusi Council for investing time to consider the reports presented by the 4 assessment bodies, which led to the approval of the 11 sets of results that we've presented. I also thank the CEO of Umalusi, Dr. Rakometsi, his management team, and the support staff at the institution for the excellent work that they do behind the scenes. The CEO and his team work tirelessly and under very difficult time pressures to deliver the best for the country. Their commitment has ensured that South Africa's education system is anchored in quality, credibility, and integrity. Nobody doubts what we do in the service of every single person in this country who chooses to walk the path of building their lives through education. Nobody is ever hesitant about the fact that the best service we can do to each of those young people is to give them a certificate that has credibility. I want to say that while our systems are certainly not without criticism, and some of the criticisms you've heard in our statement reports, I do think that we as a country, as a society, should always acknowledge, stand shoulder to shoulder in defense of what really is a very good and credible system. And that society in general should be stand up in defense of that system. And I wish you all the best for 2025, and I thank you for listening to me. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Professor Palim. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the statement of the EXCO of Council. Before I open the floor for questions, I omitted to indicate that the CEO of Umalusi is the president of the Association for Educational Assessment in Africa. Congratulations, CEO. I thought I should mention that. Thank you. You have heard from the chairperson of council, so we are now going to allow colleagues here on the platforms to raise questions on the basis of what has been presented. And I will start with the colleagues here at Umalusi, and I'm going to ask my colleagues to monitor the platforms. You put up your hand, you introduce yourself, and you ask your questions. Make sure that the mic, it's on. Red means it's on. You can go ahead. And if you want to speak, we can, all of you, press the mics. If you are green, you are not the first in the queue. The one to speak first is the one whose mic is red. I allow the colleagues to go ahead.
Are they going to use that mic?
Use both the roving and the, yeah.
Oh, so that people online can hear you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Nkosi Kwanamadingamisi from ENCA. You must have probably caught wind of the news of a website allegedly selling results to students at a price of R100. I just wanted to know your position as Umalusi. The department has already made some pronouncements that investigations are underway into those particular allegations. Some of these concerning incidents here disallowing candidates from writing some of these teachers and principals. Apart from advising parents and guardians to report the incidents, what remedial action are you recommending for the implicated educators in these instances where they've disallowed candidates from writing? And if you could just also unpack what it essentially, because you then say here that this practice is motivated by the desire to improve results. If you could just really unpack that statement for us, please. These students implicated here, or the institution, this independent institution that the DBE tells you about, what's going to happen to those students now? What's the DBE saying is the way forward now that the registration status of the school has been withdrawn? For now, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh. You can use you turn it on.
Thank you so much. Prof, do we have?
There you.
What is it?
That's fine. Yeah. You need both of them. Thank you.
Is that working, Becky?
You know, when you see two mics, because we're on radio, one man, you want to send invoice. Thank you so much. So, Prof, do we have the number of the candidates who have been blocked because you've ordered some of the assessment bodies to block them if they're involved in irregularities? Do we have that total number? And then the second one, absenteeism again. It was a problem last year, it continues to be a problem, looks like it's worse 2024. In the improvement plans that you normally get after releasing the exams have been released, the results have been released, what are they telling you as far as absenteeism is concerned? And also, what are the reasons of absenteeism? Confirmed reasons of absenteeism. We suggest we're not sure, but if you can give us the official reasons with regard to that. Thanks.
Thank you. You have a third hand? Yeah. Okay. We don't. And on the social platform? Nothing? Maybe let's entertain the two, then we will return to. Do we have?
I'm going to leave most of it to you. Shall I just make a few comments? Okay. Colleagues, a number of the questions, I'm going to make more general comments, and the CEO, Dr. Akumetsu, will speak more to the detail. He will certainly comment on the issue of a website that appears to be selling exam results. The issue of remedial action for disallowing candidates from writing, that indeed the CEO will attend to in more detail. And the future of the candidates not accredited. That is all part of the process, yeah. I wanted to pick up the issue of the absenteeism issue. It is a subject of much concern. And I would have said to you that in the DBE, National Senior Certificate System, of those who register, 8% didn't turn up. And so that sort of gives you a sense of the order. The problem, however, is a lot more severe in the adult basic education, the GTC system. And we've been at pains to have conversation with particularly the DHET examination. I don't think there's any official, or it is possible to obtain an official reason why people stay away. They're many and varied. But your point is correct, and it's a point that we've been making as well. It needs to be understood. So, for example, of those who write the GTC ABET exam, which, by the way, remember, is adults who probably had to leave school early, now looking for an opportunity to improve their educational status, etc., etc. In other words, it is, for us, an examination system that is fundamentally about giving dignity to people's lives. That's why it's important, and that's why we want it to be attended to. About 2/3, probably 65% of candidates who write that exam are women. Now, what is it about the condition under which women find themselves that may be lending itself to absenteeism? Is it an issue about childcare, for example? Is it an issue of, I don't know, single parent home? We don't, and somebody needs to understand this more in greater detail. Because I'm not convinced that people register just and knowing that they're not going to write the exam. The fact that somebody registered meant that they had an intention to write. How do we encourage that? And that's really, for me, the fundamental question. So your point is correct. It's important, and I do think it needs to be taken seriously. But I don't think there are any official reasons at this stage. Yeah. Let me hand over to the CEO, and he'll talk a little more. Yeah.
No, thank you very much for the questions. The story that has been doing rounds in the media about a website selling the results, we took note of it, and we say that is very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. It's not good for a system, because the protocols are that the results can only be released after this media briefing. After the EXCO of councillors approve the results, we issue letters to the different assessment bodies where we indicate the statement that Prof. Balim has just read. Now that said, with the information that we got, just like you, we have requested the department to investigate. And once they would have investigated, they will provide us with information, and we'll look at that information, because clearly our protocols have been breached here in terms of our approval. We are approving now. If the results were released any time earlier than now and today, then that is irregular. So we'll expect a report from the department in due course. So all I'm saying is that we are not able to provide an answer as to what has happened. The department will investigate, and once they are ready, they will provide us with reports. Regarding the gatekeeping, the culling of students, and not allowing students to write who have properly registered to write the examinations, that also is irregular, and it is culling. We call it culling. And speculatively, we say people will only cull students who are at the risk of failing. And they are at the risk of failing, therefore, a principal or a teacher would not want that student to write, because that is going to reflect negatively on the results of that school. That is not allowed. That is not allowed. Every student who has registered to write the examinations and registered in a regular manner, having met all the requirements, has to be allowed to write the examinations. And where that has happened, we say students must report such acts by the principals and teachers to the relevant authorities in the different provincial education departments and even at the DBE. And they should not wait until now. They should raise the alarm at the time when they are not allowed to write, so that the necessary arrangement can be made for them to write the examinations. With regards to the learners who were irregularly allowed to write the examinations when they have in fact not passed grade 11, what this means is that they have to go and pass grade 11, and then after having passed, come and write grade 12. And with the institution that has now been deregistered as a result of that, the department should be able to provide the students with the alternative examination center where they will be able to write. It's not the end of the world for them. They will be able to write once they qualify. With that center deregistered, they have to look for alternatives in their area. And the department should be able to provide such facilities for them. Now, coming to the questions of the numbers, Prof answered that question of the blocked results. Umalusi will not have the numbers. And fortunately, we've got the assessment bodies in the room. They've had the question. They'll be able to give you a breakdown of the number of the results that have been blocked, qualification by qualification, assessment body by assessment body. Umalusi does not have that information as we sit here. Now, the question of which Prof also answered, I'll just add one or 2 points. The question of absenteeism at the time when the examinations are written is very unfortunate. Because students, unlike in our day, when we don't pay examination fees in the public system. Now they write examinations for free, and the logistics in terms of the venue, the question papers, and the entire gamut is paid for by the state, by the taxpayers' monies. Now if you register and you don't turn up, that is wastage. That is wastage, because the taxpayers paid for you to come and sit for the examinations. And further, that we were not able, as Prof said, to give reasons. But we can only speculate. Because you register to write examinations with a good intention to go and write and pass. I can only speculate that the person who doesn't turn up to write the examination is because he's underprepared for the examinations. What this says to us is that they have to get adequate support for them to feel confident enough that they've covered the full scope of the work and they'll be able to write the exam. In that way, we'll eliminate this problem, you know. We'll eliminate the problem by saying we give the students adequate support such that they'll be ready to present themselves for examination at the time when the examinations are written. Those are our responses. I think we've covered the full scope, Prof. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Prof, I heard you mention that in the past 4 consecutive years, there hasn't been any detected paper leakages. To what would you attribute this? Maybe there's someone you want to give credit while we are here. And also, if maybe you're able to put your head on the block based on the assessment of how things went, do you maybe consider there could be yet another historic increase in the pass rate compared to what happened in 2023? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we answer, there's a hand at the back.
Hi, Craig Governor from UC4. I've got 3 questions. First one being this report, of the independent school that allowed 30 candidates who did not pass grade 11 to register grade 12. I'm just curious, are we able to identify the name of this institution? And then I'm also concerned about the fact that Umalusi learned about reports from DHET that 128 private colleges administered the end-to-end exams despite them being unaccredited. Basically, I wanted to know, how is that allowed to happen? How many are we talking about? 128. It's quite a huge number. And the final one is this material levels 2 paper administered by DHET. Here I'm gobsmacked because we find that the paper could not be standardized because a wrong question paper was administered. Can you get some explanation on that? Thanks.
Thank you, Flecker. Tavi and the team. Oh, okay. Let me allow the colleague here. Tavi and the team, if you can assist us with those on the platforms. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you again. I just wanted to return to the question.
Sorry, hold on. There's another
Someone's mic is
microphone.
on.
Oh, there it is. Now you're correct. Yeah.
Okay. It must be red for you to speak. Okay.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to return to the point of absenteeism. And I know you say you can't explain it, perhaps because there is no evidence to that effect. But do you perhaps have any reports to the extent that some of these students did not show up because of reasons, we saw the weather in some of the provinces posing some challenges. And also, am I understanding it correctly that you're looking at it holistically? So are this 8%, are these students that did not show up for a single paper, or was it instances where they showed up for one and they didn't show up for the other? But then in terms of the reasons, could some of the challenges, you look at the remote areas for example, could challenges of infrastructure, weather, etc. have played a role in that? The instances of cheating, and you've noted the provinces of KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga as recording the highest number of cases. Did you maybe find that there was a lack of oversight in terms of some of the measures in some of the schools, where the officials are concerned, where the systems are concerned? So what are some of the circumstances of some of these incidents of cheating? Thank you.
Thank you, Spiwe and Tabi. Oh, okay.
Good day. My name is Susan from Curriculum. I know that it has passed and the DE has won, but I wanted to hear your view on the publication of results. It caused quite a stir. With the irregularity information regulator saying that it shouldn't go ahead. I just wanted to hear what Umalusi's stance is on that. I think maybe something to respond to.
Okay, we will entertain this, and when we come back, we will just check on the social media platforms before we come back to the room. Thank you.
Okay, again, I'll take a few, and then you can. Yeah, there are some that are obviously in your domain, CEO. The reasons for no leakages. I think, unquestionably, it's about improvement of process. Improvement not only of process, but also of identifying risks and responding to them. State agencies have come to the fore as well, and so the opportunities for misbehavior in that area have been minimized. I don't think we wouldn't use this data as an argument that South African society is becoming a lot more ethical or moral. It's rather the fact that the opportunities have been minimized, and that is really thanks to the supporting agencies, and they've done well in that regard. And in all cases, it's been about improvement of process. And we have IEB, for example, has locks on their exam papers that are time-based, and you can only open it even if you have the code. It'll only open at a particular time. And so, and other examination bodies have done similar sort of innovative systems that will allow better control. I'm not going to take your bait about the pass rate. But I am going to make a comment about this concept of pass rate, because I think it's becoming a little bit obsession, but it's misdirected. And it's become a national thing. Pass rate, as the word rate means, it relates to speed. That's what a rate is. It's either how fast or how large. Okay? And so what we're interested in this particular case, is the number of students who pass divided by the number of students who sit for the exam. That's the pass rate, okay? And it's called a course pass rate. Now, of course, improving numbers, if you say the pass rate from last year has gone up this year, you have to say, well, what does that mean? And it's not obvious why the number has got larger. It could be that there were fewer students in the system. The number went up. That's the point about what the CEO referred to as culling. You're making the denominator smaller, for those of you who remember your arithmetic. Yeah, that's all you're doing, and so the pass rate goes up. So, I think, yes, we do. It's a number that gets people excited, but I do think that it's a number that requires interpretation. And I think that it may well be that we need almost a concerted joint effort to start helping people to interpret this number and what it means. And so it may be a conversation yet to be had. But I want us to. So I'd like to see a time when we don't obsess about course pass rate. And remember, what you do is you take an average of almost 70 subjects presented by the DBE. Similarly for the IEB, you say, what's the course pass rate? Number who wrote divided by the number who registered, and then you take an average of all of those numbers. And so you're hiding a lot of detail. I like the example of the man who put his head in the oven and his feet in the fridge. He said, on average, I feel fine. So be careful with averages. They do require interpretation. Yeah. Prega, your questions relating to I'm going to leave those largely to the CEO. But your point about the level 2 materials paper, that's an important question. Let me say it is not the first time that I report it here in this room. It's happened before. But it goes to the point about process. And it's about the way in which the process. So what constitutes an approved paper? How does an examination system start with a clean sheet of paper and then arrive at an approved examination paper? And then what happens to that examination paper? How is it chaperoned? How is it curated? Where does it get stored? Who keeps the key? Etc. And then how does that paper find its way to the correct venue at the correct time? It's all about process. And you may know I'm an engineer, but that's what we do. It's about managing process. And it seems to me, and it's a conversation we've been having with the DHET. That's why you'll note in our approval statements for the DHET, there is an extra statement that I've been reading, which is that the DHET needs to engage not only at the end of the year. We're not looking for an improvement plan that we'll look at the end of the year. We're looking for an improvement plan that we will jointly craft, that will draw on the best experience that we have from the other examining bodies as well, that says, this is the system that works and this is how you monitor it and manage it, etc. Your point about colleges that are unaccredited is really about how do we regulate the private sector, for whom this is profit implications. But we do need to regulate that. And just as we take seriously the fact that somebody sees an opportunity to make money out of selling exam results that have not been approved, so as a society, we should be standing up against those kind of things. So it is a subject of concern, but it's something that what pleases me is that the system is able to detect that and then try to respond. And if you allow me again, I'm going to use my engineering experience. We say you can't design a structure that is fail-safe. But you can try to design a structure that is safe if it fails. And that's about being able to detect error, being able to respond when you do find it. And so, yeah, that's what we're looking for. It's a never-ending process, but we keep at it, yeah. There's the issue of absenteeism that you raised. The issues that you raised, yes, of course, there were such instances. Students were prevented from arriving at school because it was raining. They couldn't cross the river. And that's a real example. The bridge was flooded and children couldn't get across. In those cases, there are not many. The school and the DBE makes a plan. In cases where students arrive late because, who knows, there was an accident on the road or something, candidates are allowed to start late and they are given sufficient time after the exam to complete. The system is sufficiently flexible to accommodate those kind of variations. The absenteeism we're concerned about, and that's 8%, is students who just didn't turn up. And it is a worry. It's 8%, and but it's large enough for us to be concerned about, and I do think that that's a problem. But the issues, the natural forces that will help prevent students from arriving, that happens every year. And so thankfully the system can mostly accommodate that. I just wanted to, if we mention the point about provinces that show high number of instances of irregularity, that is not for a minute to imply that people from those provinces are particularly badly behaved. No. Most of it relates to instances of students bring in crib notes, bring in cell phones when they know they're not allowed, etc. The exam will start with an announcement that says, please check that you haven't forgotten your cell phone, etc. And yet they found. And there's appropriate responses, but the CEO can talk a little more about that. And the CEO will talk about publication of results in the newspapers. It's really not an Umalusi issue, but the CEO will talk a little more about that. Over to you, CEO.
Thank you very much, Prof. Yeah, no, just maybe to amplify some of the points that Prof has already made. With the fact that we don't have leakages of papers this year, I think credit should go to the assessment bodies. That when this phenomenon was rearing its ugly head, they took matters seriously. They took matters seriously to say, we are going to correct our systems. And also, credit goes to all their partners, including the intelligence service that Prof referred to. Credit goes to those people that we don't have leakages. Right. Maybe I should give you the answer about the results. That's what you're interested in. Am I right? That is not our area. It is the minister's prerogative to announce the results. I think that should be loud and clear and never to be repeated here, because we are not allowed. In fact, when we standardize, we don't see the results because we standardize the subjects individually, accounting, history, economics, you name them. We don't see the results. And they will compute the results, and they still have to do some rules of combinations, and you name it. So Umalusi is not privy to the information. I think that closes the case, even for next year. Right. I think the colleague was merely teasing us.
Yeah, he was being naughty.
I was teasing us.
Yeah.
Now, the name of the independent school you'll get from the Department of Basic Education. We don't have it. It was reported to us during the approval meeting to say this happened, and so forth and so on. So the colleagues will provide you with the name. Regarding how it came about that students at 128 unaccredited colleges were able to write examinations, maybe I should take you to the protocols of how an institution is registered and accredited. What happens is that a private college, upon arriving on the scene and starting to operate, has to register with the Department of Higher Education and Training. And then immediately thereafter, it has to start the accreditation process. Once they've started the accreditation process, they can then, through the department, approach us to give them a special concession to allow them to write before they get accreditation, because they are already in the pipeline for accreditation. Now, what has happened here is that they were registered as a college. The department must have allowed them to be an exam center because the question papers would not have been delivered at their centers every morning without asking for a concession, without checking the accreditation status, and so forth and so on. That is what has happened. So having outlined the process, you'll understand that having registered them, before they can give them exam status, they have to get a concession for them to say the following are in the pipeline for accreditation with you. Therefore, please, will you allow them to write examination? And that kind of concession comes with conditions that the department has to adhere to because they have not yet passed the test of accreditation. Right. So that is what has happened. With regard to the wrong question paper that was administered, I think we are referring here to materials level 2. I think it is what Prof has referred to in terms of systems. I'm talking here about the standard operating procedure. And I'm going to make an example of my experience having run examinations in the Northwest and the Free State. When you print question papers, so as to avoid learners having a cover of level 2 materials, and only to have the content being for level 3, you know, what you do is that the person who releases the papers for print will have to check the paper, and he should not be the only person who checks that paper to say, is this the correct paper? At that time, the machines that are going to duplicate these papers must be cleaned. The tables where the packing is going to have must be clean. There should be no paper. And then people have to sign off and say, the 3 of us have checked that this is the correct paper. And then it can run in the machine, and then it will be packed. After doing that exercise, say for materials level 2, they have to clean the machines, they have to clean the tables, and the procedure starts for another paper. So I don't know what has happened here, because that is the procedure I know. And I'm talking about things that happened way back when I was still in the administration of examinations. Now, the colleagues are favored with modern technology, which modern technology should be able to do things much more efficiently, but with all the checks and balances that I've just mentioned taken care of. Right? I'm not going to talk about the weather. It is adequately covered by Prof. Now about the institutions in Mpumalanga and KwaZulu-Natal. Indeed, it does not mean that the people who run examinations in those 2 provinces don't know what they are doing. They know what they are doing. I visited both provinces, with the most recent visit being to KZN, to Mpumalanga rather. Things were running well. They're running well. At the head office, at the nodal point where the delivery happens. But where we'll have instances of group copying, it will be at institution level. And where institutions have been identified to be risky institutions, those provinces have put resident invigilators at those things. To say you come from outside, you are independent of this institution in terms of the staff establishment, but we are bringing you for the duration of the examination. So how it continues, it means with the numbers decreasing, they are managing the problem well. And we'll come to a point where we don't have incidents of group copying in the country. If they identify the problem that we have identified the problem this year, with the numbers having decreased, then they'll attend to those this year and it will be corrected accordingly. But I can tell you, the colleagues in KZN and Mpumalanga are taking their work seriously. Every step of the way, from head office to district offices to nodal points, which are the delivery points. They are really working hard. And they must be frustrated that these things continue to happen on their watch. They should be feeling frustrated. With the publication of results in the newspapers, Umalusi, like Prof has indicated, does not have an interest in this matter, not at all. Whether they are published or not, we are not concerned. And maybe to answer you, the court has pronounced on the matter. So we leave it there. We leave it there. Thank you very much.
Okay, colleagues, I want us to give an opportunity to the colleagues joining online. Tavi, do you have anything from the speaker? Nothing. Okay.
Nothing.
Okay. Let's return to the room.
Thank you so much. I see here you've given the assessment body's deadline to submit this implementation report. You engage with the department with regard to alleged fraud, buying results online.
Yeah.
You're waiting for the report. Have you told them when to submit this report? What date, which date are you expecting this report? This is a serious matter. Umalusi give confidence to members of the public, because we are here as media, we're going live and I see. Give them confidence as to what are you planning to do? When or are you expecting this report from the department? What's next, as well as we're waiting for the department? Because some of the learners, and you put it right there to say that no one should release the results. It's only you as the exam board who can do that. Let's give the country confidence. Thank you.
Vicky, is this the last round? Vicky, is this the last round? Is this the last round?
Yeah. Are you? Oh, okay. Is that the last? Okay. All right. Let's allow then. Is that
CEO,
the CEO?
you go. No,
Okay.
we'll leave it here.
Okay.
Or the chair? Okay. CEO.
There's a mic that is on. Okay, I'm on now. Thank you. No, colleagues, I understand your concerns. Indeed. Mr. Leporta, our PR and comms senior manager, has been communicating with Elijah the whole weekend. I was traveling myself. This morning, the DG called me, and we were speaking specifically about this matter. The undertaking of the DG, Mr. Mweli, is that he takes this matter seriously. He takes this matter seriously, and we take it seriously. And I want to give the South Africans confidence in our processes, that we frown upon such activities, such that we expect a report from the department. And about the timelines of the report, I want to say it depends on the complexity of the investigations. The rest of the other things we've been saying, 14 March and so forth and so on, because they are manageable and they are within the control of the department. But this one, for us to give deadlines will be problematic. All I can say is that from our discussions with the DG, this matter is receiving priority attention. But as to the timeframes, I cannot, because I don't know where it is going to take them. I don't know where it's going to take them, in terms of the scope, the complexity, and so forth and so on. And on what we are planning to do, we'll be able to pronounce after receiving the report, having looked at the findings, to say this is what we are going to do in future, so that we obviate the recurrence of such practices. We don't want such things touching the qualifications of our students. Anything that we do has to be above board. That is our commitment.
Okay. I guess that brings us to the end of our questions and answer session. It's been quite an engaging one compared to the previous sessions. And we appreciate those difficult questions because they will help us to think differently about what we do. We will now allow Dr. Suji to give the votes of thanks. Over to you, Dr. Suji.
Thank you, Program Director. As we come to the end of our media briefing, it gives me great pleasure to extend our sincere gratitude to all of you for your presence at this briefing. This day marks not only the end of a grueling process, but an important milestone for Umalusi and the various assessment bodies as they finally deliver on their promise to their stakeholders, namely the learners, the parents, and the guardians. Thanks are due to particularly the following people: Umalusi Council and its committees, under the leadership of Professor Yunus Balim, for playing their respective roles in all the processes. Prof. Balim, we are very grateful that you have been with us from the start of the processes until today. I would also like to thank the CEO, Dr. Mafura Kometsi, for providing visionary leadership and for steering this process. I convey a special word of appreciation to Dr. Mary Antoinette Liwayo and Ms. Mary Medea and Dr. Agnes Mohale, together with their teams, for their effort in putting together all the reports for the consideration of the Assessment Standards Committee and the Executive Committee of Umalusi Council. I thank the Public Relations and Communications as well as the ICT teams for working tirelessly to deliver this successful media briefing. A special word of thanks to all the assessment bodies for making sure that we all deliver on our various mandates. Importantly, I wish to thank all the media houses for covering this briefing, thereby ensuring that the Umalusi message reaches key stakeholders across the length and the breadth of our country, South Africa. In conclusion, let me wish the class of 2024 all the best as they prepare to enter a new phase of their lives. To all of you, may you all have a safe journey as you travel back to your respective destinations. Please join us for a finger lunch. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Suji. We've received several requests for interviews after this. Both the CEO and the chairperson of council will be available. Interview is seated over there. You can just make your request through her. We will accommodate all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you, colleagues. That concludes our session.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thanks for the question. Thank you, Leisure. Thank you. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma. Thank you. You come from which media house?
I'm from Victoria Record for Caxton Media.
Okay.
And thank you so much. These guys are excellent from the communication.
Wow.
We
no,
don't
thank
get
you.
this treatment often.
Thank you very much.
We get statements, we get WhatsApps. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. Well done, Vicky.
Thank you. That was okay?
Just super. Just well
good
done.
discussion here.
Yeah. We complimented each other very well. Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Vicky. Thanks for organizing all of this.
Thank you, Vicky. Thanks for all the arrangements.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They usually want to interview you. They don't